Hey guys, welcome to Massive Iron Live. It is Friday, March 7th. How you guys doing? We're not quite to spring, but we're trying to make our way there. How you guys doing? Have a good week. Get in some good training. Massive Iron Live is the longest running lifting podcast in the history of the universe, and that's my claim. Appreciate you guys being here. Before we get started, just a couple of things. Number one, if you're new here, don't be shy about posting up your questions. There are no dumb questions, no stupid questions, no awkward questions. Don't worry if a question's been asked 1,000 times before. Also, if your question doesn't go through, it's not me throttling you. Try shortening your question. Sometimes longer questions irritate YouTube. You can also try to reword things because sometimes words get caught in the filter on YouTube and it doesn't like that. Or maybe you just use a naughty word and you're an asshole. So anyway, hope you guys had a really good week. Before we dive into things, just want to remind you that, let me pull it up here if I can. Right here, you can head over to my website. If you guys are interested in coaching, need some help, you're frustrated at all, please check out the coaching tab at superlivingtoday.com. I also have a ton of workouts. I have something called the workout collection, which you can check out. Just search collection. You can go over the search bar. One of my most popular services is a custom workout, and I keep it at a very, very good value of only $39. You also get a kind of a mini bulking and cutting protocol, but you can go over there and just search custom as well. Now, for those of you guys that are tuning in late, let me see if I can find it. You can head over to Instagram at Ben the Barman. Please follow me. I'd love to connect with you. Slide into my DM with your questions. I answer every question. All right, let's get started. I am a little bit sick. I've been sick for 4.5 weeks now. It keeps coming and going. I thought I was perfectly fine on Monday. And yesterday, I just started to feel destroyed again in the throat and in the sinuses. So hanging in there. I'll try not to cough. If you see me mute things, I'm just doing the old coughing thing. All right, what do we got? Harris, howdy team Massive, more power and health to our coach, Big Hairy Ugly Dude. Thank you. Hope everything's going well with you. Rico, good afternoon, Rico. How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Are you ready for Jurassic World Rebirth? Not so much, man. I don't know. Maybe they're going to pull something out of their big kazoo and give us a really good movie. I don't know. I've watched the movies. I'm just, right now I feel so overly saturated with the endless parade of sequels, I guess you would say. It's not that these things are probably bad movies. It's just sometimes I think you can only be punched so many times with the same story before you're just kind of over it a little bit. Harris, which is lighter on your central? Neither. None of that stuff is going to really impact your central nervous system. Don't overthink this stuff. Your central nervous system really isn't going to get compromised or overworked using 10 sets 10 sets by 6 days, 12 sets by 5. You're looking at weekly volume. Harris is looking at weekly volume. You're trying to create something that doesn't exist, and I'm just being honest with you. Your central nervous system generally isn't going to get overworked unless you're really, really pushing things to the limit and really frying things out. I would be a liar if I pulled a number out, and said this is better than this and this. No one knows, Central nervous system aside, The impact's going to be extremely minor no matter what you do on the central nervous system. But central nervous system aside, this is what I call evolving training based on needs. You need to go into the gym, see what works for you, and follow it, if that makes sense. And a lot of this has to do with your exercise structure, how you're structuring exercises, what type of program you're using, etc. Big Joe B, how's it going, Joe B from Canada? My staple delt exercise is seated dumbbell shoulder press. Okay, good choice. For secondary, I'm conflicted. Standing dumbbell versus bulldozer. Which would you suggest? When we are confronted with a choice, and they're both reasonable choices, I would consider alternating between them every other week. But if you're doing them on the same day, I don't know, doing dumbbell overheads, different variations on the same day might get a little bit tedious, or you might enjoy it. I don't know. But if you find it to be tedious, I would probably do the bulldozer lateral if they are on the same day. Tanya, if someone had about 80 to 100 pounds to lose, I was looking at this question before we went on, and it was, I was thinking through it a little bit because it's an interesting question. I have a few things to say on it. If someone has 80 to 100 pounds to lose, do you think they should take Ozempic? Okay, so what I have seen, I have some clients that take it, and I keep my eyeballs on these things on my social media feed. And I'm just going to be honest with you guys here, as honest as I can be. From what I see, the success on this drug is really coming down to habits, your eating habits. I saw a post from someone, I believe, on Facebook. I believe it was somebody that I had coached before. And he had mentioned that he'd been on it for a year and hadn't lost any weight. Okay, so not gaining weight is a good thing. We all have a tendency to gain a little bit of weight each year, and then it piles up. And then before you know it, you're 5 years down the road, you're 25, 50 pounds heavier, whatever it happens to be, right? So the good news is he's not gaining weight. The reality is it's going to come down to habits. I've seen some people that have stomach issues with it, with this, and I'm no expert on Ozempic. I'm just telling you what I see in my limited world. But habits play a key, whether you're on this, a tremendous key, whether you're on this or whether you're not. And the individuals aren't going to be on it forever. Okay, so what I would say is if you need to lose 80 to 100 pounds, if somebody needs to lose 80 to 100 pounds, they need to get the weight off, because we're looking at a lot of health issues. And when it comes to getting this weight off, you can't just take a pill and expect it to fall off. You have to have some reasonable degree of damage control, of meal planning, of not bringing the stuff into the house, of not ordering and relying on fast food. You have to tag team Ozempic with a focus on habits. In the long run, that's going to be the only thing that's going to matter. Now, we want to take this individual and reduce their health risks as quickly as possible. So just taking a pill isn't going to do that. I'm not saying it won't help, but if you want to reduce your weight as quickly as possible, if you're going to take something like this, you better lock in your diet. You better stop eating as much fast food. You better start planning your meals. You better take the things other than the drug seriously. Anything you can recommend or heard of, things that help with tennis elbow. This is something I speak on a lot. You can go to the main page of my YouTube channel and search tendonitis. In the lifting world, or basically what most of us face when we get elbow tendonitis, is a lot of over-gripping, right? So you want to consider something like VersaGrips, VersaGrip Pros, with a longer strap. Grip support is your number one tool to fight something like this. Big Martin, happy Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Big Ernie, thanks for tuning in. And Justin, appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Let me just cough here a minute. On any AB type of split, done 3 days a week, alternating an exercise like the bench press and dumbbell bench every other week will have 20 days between them. No, it won't. I'll explain. Isn't that too long? No, it won't. It's not 20 days, okay? It's half that. Basically, 10 and a half days. So on work, you're going to have an AB split. You have like an upper posterior where you're doing upper A, posterior A, upper B, and posterior B. So you have 2 upper days where you're working chest. So you're basically doing upper A where you're working chest, posterior A, upper B where you're working chest, posterior B. Okay? So on upper A, you're going to do bench press. On upper B, you're going to do dumbbell bench. So Monday, you start out with bench. Tuesday or Wednesday is posterior. We're just using the days of a week as an example. And Friday, you're doing dumbbell bench. Okay? So you have bench on Monday, okay? And then you come back next week and you do bench on Wednesday, and the following Monday you're doing dumbbell bench. Okay, so that's like, do you guys want me to bring up a Google Doc? This might really help explain this a little bit better. Sometimes a visual is a good idea, and I'm going to pull up a visual just so you guys can kind of see, what exactly I'm talking about, because I think this is an important topic. Let me just share screen. Okay. So, insert table, So we have 4 workouts. Okay. And let me just center this. We have upper A and upper. Each column is a workout, okay? A workout day. So you have upper A, upper B, posterior A, posterior B. And we'll just kind of page setup. Hang with me here while I get this dialed in. Whoops, I made a boo-boo. We made a boo-boo, 0.5. 0.5. We're just giving it some space to breathe here. Just bear with me a second. Okay. So upper A, you're going to have bench. Okay. And upper B, you're going to have dumbbell bench. Wherever it is in the order, it doesn't matter. Let me just delete this row. So if we go down here and we do the magic bullet points, let's say you start on Monday, you have bench. Good grief, I have the caps lock on. I was doing something else before I hopped on. I forgot. Okay. And then Wednesday, you're going to do posterior. And then Friday, you're going to go back to upper B where you have dumbbell bench. Okay. Now we are in week 2. Okay. So Monday, you're going to have posterior B. And then Wednesday, what am I doing? If I could type, that's what happens when you try to rush. Okay, so we're going to go back to bench or upper A on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we have another posterior workout. And we will round out the 3rd week. Okay, so we go back to Monday and we have dumbbell bench. And then we have Wednesday, we have posterior, and we have Friday, we have bench. Okay. So basically bench, dumbbell bench, bench, dumbbell bench. Okay. So you're getting in an upper body workout 1.5 times a week, or you're getting in 1.5 uppers per week. You're getting in 3 every 2 weeks, and you're getting in 6 every 4 weeks. Okay. So you're getting in 6 upper body workouts every 4 weeks. So you're hitting your chest 6 times in 4 weeks. Frequency 1.5 times a week. Of that, you are doing bench 3 times, and 3 times you are doing dumbbell bench. So assuming a month is 30 days, you are doing each of these about every 10 to every 10.5 days. Does that make sense? That's absolutely fine. Because you're doing the same movement pattern, you're fairly safe. The only thing I will say is if you're doing squats, I don't really want you going more than 8 or 9 days. So if you're doing an A-B type of split, things can get a little bit hairy. I want to see you squat every 8 to 9 days. I don't want to see that connective tissue decondition. So I would, work it like that. And after going through all the spiel, sorry, JJ said I meant 20 days no, it's not 20 days until you do the same lift. It's half that. Sorry. Ice Cold Tristan, happy Friday. Team Massive, thanks for tuning in. If I can back squat 295 and close grip bench 215, both for 3x5, what would my estimated 1 rep max be? I don't know. We're playing guessing games. If you can close grip 215 for 3x5, maybe 275, maybe a little bit more. On squat, maybe 375, 385, somewhere around there. That'd be a rough guess. Because I had a thought this week that if I did 215 for 3x3 for the first time on close grip bench, in that if I can do 3x5, my estimated 1 rep max would be north of 2. Oh, absolutely. Every rep you add on a top set on a bench or any exercise at that level is going to add 5 to 6 to 7 pounds on your 1 rep max. Shelly Kleinemann, thanks for tuning in. Would you lose fat, weight? Are there specific places on the body that lose fat first, or is it? Generally, it is even. I will say, though, that and I'm no expert on this. I'm just giving you some general thoughts or impressions. One thing to consider is that guys tend to store their weight in their stomach, right? Big belly. Belly weight can be a lot of internal visceral fat, okay? When you gain fat, it's just not fat on your fatceps, your biceps. It's just not man boob fat. It's just not, lower belly fat. It's also internal fat around your organs and, your beer belly, so to speak. So I've seen this before many, many times. I don't know that it's the case, but it seems sometimes that if somebody has, let's say somebody is 250 pounds, a male, with a lot of belly fat, you will lose fat everywhere, but the belly becomes most noticeable, and it almost seems like you're losing a high percentage of fat internally in a relative sense. Maybe that's just because you have so much fat in your stomach, you can dramatically see it shrinking down. But there's your body's not going to discriminate and say, I'm going to pull fat from a specific area. Each area has a a specific amount of fat, a certain percentage of fat. And I think it's more noticeable in areas that are carrying a lot of fat, like your stomach. Like my quads, when I was overweight, didn't have a lot of fat on them. You could barely pinch if you're doing a caliper test. Just wasn't a lot to pinch, right? So, it's not going to be as noticeable, but I hope that helps some. Big PD. What is the average bulking calorie intake you've seen across the board for male clients? I've seen as low as 2,700, and I've seen as high as 5,200 to 5,500. So generally it's, around the 3,000 to 3,200 range, generally, if I would say an average. Top 3 LOR characters, Martin Furneaux is one of them. Martin's one of the top 3. I would say Sam. I would say Bilbo. And I don't know. Am I allowed just to say the dwarves? I don't know. When traveling and not training, how much should one be concerned with protein intake? Well, if you've trained in the last week, basically, if you've trained within the last week, you have probably a 3 or 4 or 5 day window where the body's still recovering, depending on, what's going on. So I try to keep things reasonable, but there's a couple variables here. If your calorie intake is high, you're getting in plenty of carbs, and carbs are going to be protein sparing. So it's not as critical that you need to get in as many calories. Somebody like Paladin that's consuming a lot of carbs because he eats a lot of food, that's going to be very protein sparing. So protein intake isn't going to be as critical. But it's a short period of time. There's really no concerns. My number 1 priority is getting in the calories, and my number 2 priority is getting in the protein. The calories are very conducive for muscle retention. And obviously, if you're getting in a lot of calories, you're probably going to be getting in a reasonable amount of protein. But I always keep an eye on 150, when it comes to protein intake as a red line minimum. How do you define beginner, intermediate, and advanced? Well, a beginner it's nothing to do with time, because there's a lot of guys in the gym that have been in the gym for a very long period of time, and I'm not being cruel, quite frankly, they don't have any idea what they're doing, to the point where they can be effective. They can get a lot out of their training. Not a criticism, it's just a reality. A beginner is still trying to figure out, nutrition. They might be immature, so to speak, on nutrition, not planning their meals, not really watching, not having a structured bulk. They're not really getting anything out of their training, whether their training is focused or unfocused, right? So a beginner will also have sloppier form, more unfocused form. What I mean by that is they might not understand the posterior lips, or they might not be getting a lot out of the posterior lips, or there might be just chasing reps and just being really sloppy on the exercises, like leg extensions or lat pull downs. Their form really isn't efficient enough to get much out of their training. Now, reasonable form is going to give you good results from your training, solid results from your training. But a beginner is still working on form. Beginners still working on their diet. They're still working on form. They're still working on building a base of strength. They're still trying to unlock all the pieces combined so they can start to gain muscle and strength in a consistent manner. And you can jump from a beginner to an intermediate rather quickly. A beginner still needs time. I mean, if they went into the gym and they are nailing their form and they're nailing their diet and they're nailing everything out of the gate, they still need time to get over that, shaky stage, that introductory neurological chaos that happens. And they still need to establish a track record, that they are consistently building strength and building muscle. So I hate to set a amount of time that someone's a beginner, but generally I'd say the quickest you could probably go from a beginner to a late beginner, early intermediate, is maybe about 6 months. If you really get in and really nailing beginner gains in your first 6 months and you're hitting progressive overload and your form is good, you're going to make pretty solid progress. So you can start to enter that late beginner, early intermediate stage. An intermediate lifter enters what we call the grind zone, where they start to worry that they're doing something wrong. Everything was moving really rapidly as a beginner. And then as an intermediate, hey, I think I've hit a plateau. My bench I'm only adding 1 rep every 6 weeks, every 4 weeks. These are the intermediate questions. Even if it's early intermediate, they start to pick up a fear that they're doing something wrong when they're not doing anything wrong at all. The process just naturally slows. The closer you fly to the sun, the hotter it gets. And lifting, what that means is the more muscle and strength you build, the slower the next step is going to be. That's a reality. All these videos about, hey, I've plateaued and here's a way to expedite the plateau, or here's a way to combat the plateau, are quite frankly nonsense, because they lack an understanding of the process. Unless you're a genetic freak, you can do a specialization program and squeeze a little bit of juice out of that orange, right? But in the long run, no plateau busting program is going to dramatically impact that rate. It's going to be a long grind at the intermediate stage. So the intermediate stage is the grind stage. It's a long period of stay. It's the longest stage. Where you're going from, hey, I've overcome beginner gains and I have a good grasp of form and I'm nailing my bulks and nailing my calories and I've established a history of building strength and building muscle. And then you enter the early intermediate stage and you could be using 50-pound dumbbell benches, 50-pound dumbbells on dumbbell bench. And then you're working up to getting the hundreds. It can be a long stretch of time, a long grind. And it can, that's the meat and potatoes of what we do as lifters. The intermediate zone is really where, trying to reach the intermediate zone is really where lifters go to die. They try to do everything other than progressive overload. I'm going to add volume. I'm going to focus on feel. I'm afraid my joints are going to get beat up, so I'm going to do this, that, or the other thing. Excuse my language, but it's what we call fuck around-itis. You start to see people develop fuck around-itis as the weight gets heavier. And, inconsistent diet is very unforgiving. Lack of focus on progressive overload is very unforgiving. And it prevents people from entering that intermediate stage. The intermediate stage is really where the majority of muscle is built. If you're focused in the beginner stage, you're going to build some muscle. You're going to nail your form. You're going to build, 6 to 8 pounds of muscle, whatever it is, right? But then you're going to enter the intermediate stage, and that's when the majority of your strength and muscle is built. And it's also where, like I said, most people just go to die. They give up, quit, overthink things. Things become more slow. They try to, I'm going to add volume. I'm going to switch to Mike Menser. I'm going to switch programs. I'm going to jump programs. This is really where patience becomes key. You need to get in there and you need to grind for 3 to 5 years. Grind, 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 grind. An advanced lifter, people always come to me and say, how do I know I'm an advanced lifter? If you're not sure, you're probably not an advanced lifter, and that's not an insult. An advanced lifter has spent a long period of time in the intermediate zone, and they are pretty close to their potential, like capping out 80 to 90% of all the muscle and strength they'll ever have. You walk into a gym and you see an advanced lifter. They're moving around a ton of weight. They look focused. They look at a next level. You can just tell something is going on. It's the type of guy you want to watch, guy or girl, whatever you want to watch, because you know they've been doing it for a long period of time. They've established consistency. They know what works for them. A lot of the stuff that works for them, if they brought it on social media, might even take heat. I like to do this. I like to do that. I like to do this superset. I like to rest, pause this. And some knucklehead will come on, respond in the comments. That's not optimal, or that's not the way you should do things, or science says, right? And an advanced lifter, excuse my crude language, is basically pissing on the fire that is optimization. They know what works for them. And what works for them is the accumulation of a long, long period of time of training and adaptation and training evolution. They go in the gym. They don't like T-bar rows, but they like dumbbell rows. They don't like squats. They like safety bar squats. They don't like squats in the 6-rep range, but they like this specific reverse pyramid program or approach. So the advanced lifter is going to have basically a program that makes no sense to you. It doesn't have that structure or that optimization that we would typically expect, that like people on social media get drunk on. You have to have 4 to 6 reps, or you have to have 2 sets per exercise, or it has to be this volume per week, right? The program of an advanced lifter is probably not going to make any sense to anyone. And if you put it in a room of optimization gurus, it basically causes them to have a heart attack, because it is based on experience. It is based on preference. It is based on what is taking place in the gym. And a lot of that, could be related to injury history. Someone just might find that the T-bar row treats their lower back better. Everybody, you have longer limbs or shorter limbs. You might hate pull-ups because of long arms. You might love the V-bar, lat pull down and the pull over. All of this really, really comes down to a lot of years of experience. And an advanced lifter is going to have the majority of their mass and strength. They don't need to ask somebody how to program. They know what they like. They know how to get it done. And they are, if you ask them, they know what it takes. Now, there are some advanced lifters out there that start to get drunk on the smell of their own poop. All right. Sorry to be crude, but it's true. You will get some advanced lifters that will develop a system of training over 10 years. And they will start to think that my system is best for everyone. This is a huge red flag. And I want you guys to always remember it. You can have an advanced lifter that will develop a system based on preferences over the years, and then he'll dump it on your lap and say, this is the way, this is the path. And it's not. That's the path for him, and it works perfectly fine for him. But you are going to be on a different path, and that is the brilliance of the freedom of lifting. As long as we have a reasonable volume and reasonable exercise selection and all of these things, we're in the reasonable realm of what has worked in the last 70 years. You have the freedom to evolve your training based on needs. You can laterally swap T-bar rows for Pendley rows or dumbbell rows, right? You can laterally swap dumbbell curls for, easy bar curls for whatever. You can do these things, right? That's the beautiful thing about training. It is freedom rather than the restriction that these pseudo influencers and optimizers don't understand or don't tell you or don't teach you. So an advanced lifter is going to have confidence in their system, and they are going to have a lot of strength and muscle. You can basically see them when you spot them in the gym. Now, I'm just going to put a final end note on this discussion because it is something you will see. And you see a lot in the lifting world. You will see advanced lifters beat themselves up, punish themselves, build a lot of mass over a long period of time. And then they wake up and they start to train completely different. They set aside what they've been doing and they start to train completely different. I'm not going to name names here, but you can see these guys on social media. They train completely different from how they built their base. Here is why. Once you have built a substantial amount of muscle and strength, it is super easy to maintain that muscle and strength as long as you're basically doing anything. So when you see these hyper advanced lifters, these gods on social media, and they switch to something that's completely different from how they built their base, and they'll start to tout this as their method. And it can be confusing to a lot of lifters. You have to look at how they built their base because it's how you're training, it's how I'm training. And I want you guys to always remember, once you get to that stage where you're advanced, you can do pretty much anything. Reduce volume dramatically, reduce exercise selection dramatically. And it's very, very hard to lose muscle mass. All right, guys, we are about 38 minutes in. I'm going to take a drink. We're going to keep the train rolling. Jeffrey Kleinemai, good morning. Thanks for tuning in. Axel, how do you best balance combat sports and lifting? As I'm preparing for a jiu-jitsu competition, what I just spoke on is very, very important here. Very easy to maintain muscle and strength. So you have a focus, and that is a competition. I have clients that compete in martial arts. I think I have 3 currently that compete or train heavily in martial arts. One thing I will say, very easy to maintain strength and muscle. So you got to remember, my focus right now is on that competition. I don't want to get injured. I don't want to do anything crazy. So it's okay to reduce your training down to a couple times a week or every 3rd day or even 3 days if that works for you. Don't over push the volume. Don't over push for PRs during this time. You basically want to hold the ship steady, not get injured. You're going to maintain your mass. You're going to maintain your strength. So you can reduce all these things as needed. You can reduce the number of days per week. You can reduce the number of overall volume. You can reduce your push for PRs. Okay. And you're going to sustain your mass. You're going to sustain your strength. You're going to be healthy. This reduction of fatigue, because you're training a little bit less, is also going to allow you to recover, and you'll probably perform better in jiu-jitsu, if that makes sense. After losing weight and muscle, can I incorporate weight gainers in my diet as well to gain weight quickly? Because it's not possible to eat while you're working. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. You lost weight and muscle. Obviously, it sounds like something happened. I don't know. Maybe you're away from the gym. Maybe you just had a period where you're working hard and you couldn't lift. Something happened where you lost weight. Maybe quickly. I don't recommend gaining it back quickly. Okay. But it's in a case-by-case basis. If you're in the hospital and lost 30 pounds in a month, then you've lost a lot of muscle. You've lost, some bone density. You've lost a lot of things other than muscle. So in that case, I'd probably try to build up a little bit more aggressively, and you could use a weight gain or whatever you want to get in your calories. But I don't want to give blanket generic advice here because there's so many possible scenarios. I would need to know more information. So thank you, sir, for that. I really, really appreciate it. Never get to make these live. Thanks for inspiring me and putting your information out there. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a small business, and every nickel and dime matters. So I really, really appreciate that. All right, where were we? And I'm going to say, any of you guys can come over to my Discord group. If you don't have the link or the link is expired, please message me or please hit me up on DM on Instagram. We can go deeper into these things. The Friday Live is a chance, to have fun, to talk about questions, to see, you just never know what's going to happen. But if we need to dive deeper into things, come on over to Team Massive. Come on over to the Discord server. You can pick my brain as much as you want. Big Zach Schnatzkalatsky. Big Zach, how's it going? I've never seen that name before, Zach. I'm trying to figure it out. Shalecki? Okay, that's the best I got. Let me know how I did. Hey, what are your thoughts on weighted push-ups? No issues with them at all. I do a lot of them and have noticed my bench press and overhead have gone way up. You want to still attack your bench and overhead? There's nothing wrong with doing weighted push-ups. At my strongest, the years, 8 to 10 years I was at my strongest, I always did not weighted push-ups, but I always did regular push-ups. You can add, you can do decline push-ups, you can do push-ups with a vest, whatever you want. But just focus on good control on your push-ups, and yeah, you can absolutely use them. Strength builds strength. Someone's going to ask me, do push-ups increase bench strength? Does bench increase overhead strength? Does overhead strength increase bench strength? Well, we don't always know to what degree one lift is going to assist another, but what we do know is that strength builds strength, right? That's why we use a reasonable selection of exercises. The massive iron way, or my way of training, is trying to get the body from head to toe as strong as humanly possible. We use a shotgun approach, right? We understand that chest is or bench press is working our chest, but we also understand that it's working our shoulders and our triceps. So we use a shotgun approach, a reasonable selection of exercises. So we have all coverage, right? It's like a 5G network. We have full 5G nationwide coverage, right? We don't just do one or two exercises, very minimal. We use a reasonable volume. We try to get strong on everything from head to toe. This is really a cornerstone of what I teach. Big Lee. Big Steve, I'm 2 days into a cut, and already I'm experiencing mood swings. How do these influences, okay, I got stumbled on the words here. I'm experiencing mood swings. How do these, maybe instances like this, because this is Rotten OL30. Look, the first few days of a cut are always going to suck. You have to enter the arena knowing that, right? Things are going to change. Your hormones are going to be all over the place. You're going to feel wacky. You're going to feel zany, right? You're going to feel like doo-doo. That's the way it goes. You have to enter the arena knowing the opponent, knowing the battle that lies ahead. Things are going to suck for 2, 3, 4, 5 days. It's not going to feel like you're walking through a field picking daisies. It's not going to feel like unicorn farts and cotton candy. It's not going to feel like a day at a picnic. It's going to feel like crap. But that tells you you're on track. There's no advice I have for you other than sit through, suck it the bleep up. That's all you can do. That's why it's best to start a cut. Number one, aware that it doesn't happen for everybody. equally. Some people are more hypersensitive to discomfort than others, and that's not a criticism. It's just something I've learned. Some people are more hypersensitive to pain. Some people are more hypersensitive to hunger. Some people are insulin resistant or pre-diabetic to the point where they cut the carbs back and all hell breaks loose in their body. Their body is literally like hashtag WTF is going on, right? And we're poking fun a little bit and making a little bit of humor at the situation, but that's the reality. The only thing I can say is get through the first 5 days. It gets easier. It gets more sustainable. And generally, things just kind of slide forward from there. I find things go pretty well until like day 25 or 30. And then it's not like I crave nachos or crave a beer or crave pizza. It's not like I physically crave it. It's just that sometimes around that time I get bored, right? I want something different in my mouth. Don't be a hater. I want something like pizza. I want nachos. I just want something different. So that's the trap for me. The trap can be, different for everyone. Big Sam. If someone is benching 240 for 4 reps, what is a realistic timeline for adding a rep? Could be a year. It could be a month. There's a wide variance. It's generally not every week or second week or third week. I can tell you that. Some people are going to go from 240 by 4 to 315 by 4 in a year. And they're just kind of outliers. So you have to ignore those guys on social media. They're King Kongs. They're just built for it. They're the luck. They just have the luck and the genetics and they're just freakazoids, right? But there's nothing I can say specifically. The key thing is to nail your bulking, to nail and just get in there and have sustainable hard training. I could toss out a number, but it's going to be unrealistic. It could take you, look, there are some people that are going to scratch and scrape and struggle to get to 240 by 4, and it could take them 10 years to get there, right? There are guys I work with that have been training their entire life that don't bench 225. There are guys I work with that are on focused bulks, that have been with me 3 or 4 years, and, we haven't got to 200 yet. It's different for everybody, but the key, the cornerstone, the focus is always on hard, sustainable training. Somebody could have spent 20 years getting to 240 by 4, and they will never get to 315, even though they're so close. They might add 1 or 2 reps over the next 10 years, and then their body is kaput, right? And then they're done. They're just in sustain mode. So you might have that guy, and you might have the guy that gets it done in a year. So, Sam, I wish I could give you some advice, but the advice is to be patient and nail the variables you can nail. Nail your nutrition. Nail your training. Keep your structure. Don't program hop. Get in the tube. Get in the tunnel. Get in the focused lane and nail the things you can nail so you can facilitate the best possible outcome. Andy, I think it's been a while since I saw you, Big Andy. I'm doing about 80 sets a week on average. Is that a good amount? In the muscle building world, in the massive iron world, I teach that an average workout of about 75 minutes is going to have 18 hard sets. For some people, it'll have 16. For some, it'll have 20. It's going to vary a little bit, and we're not trying to create rules. Okay? So 4 hard workouts a week at about 18 sets per day is going to keep you in the gym about 5 hours. Okay? So you're in the gym maybe about 6 hours. That's fine. 80 sets a week is fine. 5 to 6 hours of training. As long as you're recovering, that's absolutely fine. That's a quality amount. Probably at minimum, you don't really want to go under 50 hard sets per week unless you're in kind of a critical mode where your work is killing you. You know, you had a new baby, you can't really train as much. You can still get a lot out of your training, at that level, but bringing it up a little bit to 60, 65, 70 hard sets per week would probably be good. Big Jeff. Top veggie carb sources for increased food volume on a cut. So when you're on a cut, you want to maximize food volume. Okay? So to maximize food volume, you have several variables. Number one, you want to bring your protein intake to at least 35% of your daily intake. This will force you to rely on leaner proteins and will allow you to intake more protein foods on a daily basis. More food volume from protein. You want to reduce your fats close to 20%, but probably not under. You need fat for skin, organs, central nervous system. So if we reduce our fat intake down to about 20%, and we increase our protein intake to 35 or 40%, the remaining calories are going to come from veggie/carb sources. So if we want to maximize food volume, I'm not telling you not to eat rice or potatoes or oatmeal or beans or peas or corn, but those things are all relatively higher in calories. They're more calorie dense. So if you want to maximize food volume, it's okay to eat these foods, but you want to pull back on them a little bit. When you eat the more low glycemic veggie choices or things you can pile a lot on, one thing I do is a lot of jalapenos, a lot of pickled onions. Those are my go-tos. Roasted red pepper, things that taste good, that add flavor inherently. Pearled pickle onions. If you want to go full-blown classic veggies, carrots and broccoli and cauliflower. Fruits, you can do a lot of the low glycemic fruits, the berries, the blueberries, the blackberries, the strawberries, even things like watermelon. So I hope that helps some. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. Big Lee. Realistically, during my 40 days, how much weight loss is realistic and or nothing's going to be dangerously? I mean, it takes a lot to put us in a dangerous level. That would be starvation and probably not getting in your electrolytes. An aggressive cut is fine. You're not going to lose, the fear that the body is fragile and you're going to lose all your muscle mass is a lie. It simply is. It's very, very hard for the body to lose mass unless you're starving and not training. So you want to drop your calories as low as you can to the point where they are sustainable. I've lost 20 to 25 pounds in a week before when I moved from a crappy diet, or in a month when I've moved from a crappy diet to a clean diet. 20 pounds realistic? Probably not. In 40 days, I would say you could lose 20 pounds on an aggressive cut. 10 pounds would be the minimal, and somewhere 12, 15, 18. If you want to really attack, you could get that done. Big fat leg. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you being here. Red Polar Bear. Good morning, Steve. How would you go about picking the right weight for something like overheads or seated dumbbell overheads? I'm around 100s by 8, but I always feel like I'm pressing into myself. I don't know what you mean by that, Red. So maybe you can clarify. I'm trying to understand a concern. So maybe you can clarify for me. If you're doing 100, are you doing 100-pound hundreds, like 100 in each hand for seated dumbbell overheads? And when you say you're pressing into yourself, just explain for me if you can. Fat leg. I know splits don't matter, but in terms of your personal preference, what would you say are the pros and cons of torso limbs versus upper posterior? The upper posterior, you have to rest after an upper day. So even though it's flexible, you have that. You're always going to have a degree of inflexibility on any program. Does that make sense? On a torso limbs, you need to rest after a limbs day. You need your arms fresh after an upper day or after a limbs day. So you have that degree of inflexibility. A torso day, you're doing chest and shoulders and back all in one day. And that can be a little bit brutal, for some, if it's not balanced properly. On the other hand, the posterior days can be brutal for some people as well because you're doing legs and back. So really, it comes down to a lot of personal preference. No matter what program you use or no matter what split you use, there's going to be one day that feels more brutal than the others. Doesn't matter if it's a body part split. Doesn't matter if you're using 3 different full body workouts a week. It doesn't matter, right? So one of the good things about the torso limbs is you can do legs and arms on the same day. And that's really good for somebody that doesn't want to overwork their legs on a given day. You can do a little bit of squatties, maybe leg curls, and then maybe move on to arms. Or the other day, you can do hack squats and leg extensions or whatever, and then move on to arms. Not everybody has to be after Tom Platt's legs, right? You might just want to train your legs with 4 exercises per week or 4 exercises for, the 2 torso days or limb days, and that's fine. So the posterior day tends to be brutal. The upper day on the other torso limbs day, the torso day can be a little bit brutal. It depends on how you structure things, but really they're pretty similar in nature, in a lot of ways. It just really comes down to preference. I read some people say torso limbs can aggravate the elbow. That's an outlier case. I mean, elbow issues, I've never heard that from any of my clients, and I'm not being, dismissive, but I've never heard that. So I think you're listening to somebody that had elbow issues, and it was probably more of a case of exercise selection. It could have even been elbow tendonitis that they were dealing with, which could be aggravated by doing pushing and pulling in the same workout. It's really hard to tell. Let me get a drink. Trying out dumbbell rows. I do have a slight tendency to swing a bit, even though power is not swinging. Power is power. Power off your chest is not swinging. Power out of the hole on squats is not swinging. Get a video. Join Team Massive. Power is not swinging. If you're swinging the torso to move the weight and then driving the elbow back, that would be swinging. Does that make sense? I'm just unpacking this a bit. I'm still, he had a little bit of extra information. I still don't know what you mean about pressing into yourself. Just a little bit, I just need a little bit more information. Do you think that the overhead press is one of the most slept on exercises? Absolutely. I made a video about it this week, which came from a comment on live last week. or a response on live last week. And we can all laugh. Let's just relax for a minute, when it comes to the side lateral raise discussion, and laugh at this with me, if you will. There are no magical exercises, right? We can all agree on that. Squats aren't a requirement. Deadlifts aren't a requirement. No exercise is a requirement, except for side lateral raises, right? Except. So the video I made basically said side lateral raises are not a requirement for big side delts. They're not. They're no magic exercises. So if you find yourself at this point in the road, there's this dichotomy where there's no magic exercises except side lateral raises, you might need to detox from some of the influencers you're following. I have performed side lateral raises for 40 years. They're the sprinkles on the icing on the cake. They're not a primary mass builder. They never will be. They don't have a good progression opportunity. That doesn't mean you can't use them. You can't get your side lateral raises up to 100 pounders. There's a very limited amount of progression. You're going to increase your side laterals if you're training properly. Basically, after 6 to 8 months, you're going to have about all the room you're ever going to get out of them. Right? So when you reach that stage, it's just like with lat pull downs. They tend to cap out quickly. Then you can keep them in to sustain. But the community goes way, way too crazy over that lift. And it's a very minor lift. The overhead press is very slept on. The BTN press as well. The BTN press would always be something I think everybody should try. But even if you only do the push press or the military press or the seated pin press or whatever, you're going to build a lot of side delt mass. No exercise gives me a side delt pump like a seated overhead press. None. Brutal side delt pump. Now, people are afraid of them. When I do my overheads, I can feel my front delts. When you do bench press, you can feel your front delts as well. This doesn't mean we don't do overhead presses and bench. Generally, if somebody, and I want you guys to remember this isn't an insult, it's a rite of passage in lifting. It's a reality. When you first start to attack presses, whatever form they are in, bench or overhead, you're going to get a lot of front delt soreness because the front delts are heavily stressed. And then at that point, you're going to start to notice more of the chest and more of the triceps and more of the side delts. So don't panic if you can feel the front delts. They are compound movements. Is it normal to be stuck on the same reps of seated shoulder head press? Well, it's definitely normal. I mean, it's not abnormal. If you gained a rep every 5 or 6 weeks, you'd be gaining 5, 6, 7 pounds on that lift. So that would be pretty good progression for an overhead, despite the hype on the internet. Should you increase calories? Well, there's no way to say. Are you bulking? Is your bulk giving you at least 2 pounds a month? If not, you probably should. Private citizen. Do you have any opinion on pre-workout supplements that incorporate kratom? Hold on one sec. No opinion. When I used to spend a lot of time with music, and I was in studio many, many times. And the point of this story is that one of the studios that I went to, the individual also sold kratom over the internet. And I don't know jack squat about it. Is it going to dramatically be a game changer pre-workout? No, nothing's going to be a dramatic game changer pre-workout. Some of it, giving you caffeine, giving you a little creatine, giving you a little pump, whatever, can have some benefit, but I don't know anything about it, to be honest with you. How long between off-the-floor deadlifting and back squats do you think is fine before neurological form loss occurs? I want to rotate in variations, but not lose my form. I've never seen this happen. I think it's a little bit on the overthinking side. Now, you want recovery, and I'm not being dismissive. I don't think it's an issue. I think somebody might have talked about it, but number one, we adapt to our training approach pretty darn quickly. Number two, I've done a lot of crazy things over the years, and anytime you're going to get form loss, it's generally from lack of discipline or lack of understanding or just lack of experience with form. So generally, I want at least 2 days between if I can help it. Spoken to this person after he commented on how much I squat. I'm going to injure myself in the future. Yeah, that's called somebody that doesn't want to do heavy lifts, so he's going to make you feel like you're going to die because he's being a bitch. I'm just being honest, So that's the truth. I saw an Instagram post this week or today, and there's a lot of fear. My joints are going to get destroyed, like Ronnie Coleman. I've been training 40 years and my joints aren't destroyed, and I got pretty darn heavy. Regarding weight, I got pretty darn heavy as far as body mass, making my joints carry that burden, and I got pretty strong. Now, one could say I'm an outlier or genetic freak or whatever, but the real risk comes when you are at that top level of powerlifting and you're going to beat the living crap out of your body for 20 years, right? People like this are ignorant. People like this are just trying to justify their lack of quality training. It's as simple as that. The body's not that fragile. Do you think a lat neutral grip row is just as effective as a vertical pull? Well, in the massive iron world, we look at effectiveness as a quality group of exercises. When you are looking at an individual exercise, you ask yourself, is it a reasonable exercise? Both of these are reasonable exercises. If you can feel and work the lats on both of them, then they are reasonable exercises for your lats. Okay, makes sense? The best, meaning the most effective, would be a combination of both. I can't tell you which exercise is going to be better for you. If an influencer tries to tell you, they are lying to you. I can't tell you which reasonable exercise is going to be better for you. This is speculation. It's speculatory nonsense. Any influencer that's trying to tell you this is just flapping their gums and living in the ego lane. They don't have a clue. What we do know is if you have a reasonable selection of exercises for a muscle group, in this case, the lats, and you work them and you can feel your lats working on both, then they're both reasonable and you should probably use both. Either use both on a weekly basis or alternate every other week. We want to have progressive overload. Row exercises are going to generally have a bigger progression opportunity, but that doesn't mean we can't use step down exercises that have an average progression opportunity. So what we need to look at is your overall selection of exercises, weekly selection of exercises. There's room in there for the big hitters like rows. There's room in there for mid hitters like neutral grip row. You can insert in a lateral, a neutral grip row, focused neutral grip row. If you also have another big hitter, what we can't do is pull out all big hitters and then leave things with no lifts that have no progression, no solid progression opportunity. Now on the lats, things get particularly sticky because with the lats, there aren't really any big hitters, big monster progression opportunity hitters, other than a weighted pull-up. But the truth is, not a lot of people can do weighted pull-ups because of body weight or limb lengths or leverages or just genetics, or it's just a body weight exercise that isn't easy for a lot of people. So with the lats, you don't have the big juicy hitters like the bench press and the dips. When it comes to back development, the dumbbell rows, the penalty rows, the barbell rows, the T-bar rows, all big hitters. With the lats, you have a lot of mid to upper card lifts, and that's okay. Lat pull downs, they go well for a certain period of time, and then they tend to cap out really, really quickly. We have the dumbbell pullover. You have a lat focused dumbbell row, which, I've got my lat focused dumbbell row up, but I still think it's a mid to upper hitter. It's not a big, big hitter. So with lats, we want to look at, if we really want to put together a good lat program, is the selection of exercises good? Good. Then you're in a good place. This is back to the guy that said he'll shoot your eye out if you do heavy squats. He used to squat heavy. I'm going to tell you something. When you see a lot of these older guys or lifters that say they used to do a lift, either they got afraid of the weight, or I'm going to be honest here for a second, their form was shit. Shit in the form of punishing, or just shit squat form. I'm not being critical or hyperbolic when I say that the majority of squats you see on social media need a lot of work, and they are going to be punishing. So I do not care what he says. You need to work on form. You don't have to squat. What lifts can target the lower glute? Now we're trying to target a section of the glutes, and that's becoming more and more particular and more focused. I have no idea. I've never been asked this question before. I don't know specifically that any exercise targets the lower glute. I don't really know. I think there are reasonable exercises for the glutes. And I think, if you're having problems with your glutes, you just need to use a good selection of reasonable exercises and find out, through trial and error, which ones seem to be working well for you. If I want to evolve my program and feel like lowering a demanding exercise from 3 sets to 2, that's reasonable. Like if you want to move squats from 3 to 2, or RDLs from 3 to 2, or deadlifts from 3 to 2, that's absolutely reasonable. These exercises can take up a lot of time and energy, and mentally they can just be challenging, so that's fine. I did that on dumbbell rows. Dumbbell rows, I only do 1 set, because when I do a set of 200 for 20 plus reps, I'm done. Like, I'm literally done. After doing the right side, I usually do the left side first because it's weaker, and I'm literally done. And I have to rest 5 to 6 minutes in between sets before I do the right arm. I'm done. So right now, if I were to go in and do a set of deadlifts and then follow it with dumbbell rows, I do 2 sets of deadlifts and then 1 set of dumbbell rows, and then I'd flesh out the rest of my back day with, plenty of impactful movements. You're not being lazy as long as your weekly volume is okay. If progress stalls on a bulk, if your weight's not moving, you need to eat 200 more calories. And then you need to watch that for another week to 7 days. I'm tuning in on my lunch break. Hey, Big Zach Barker. Almost a week into my bulk and enjoying it thoroughly. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. I appreciate you tuning in. Best workouts and methods to build the yoke. I have put together so many videos over the years on how I have trained the traps and the yoke. Some people assume my traps are genetic. I will tell you, probably more than any other exercise, I have beat the living schnotzitsky out of the traps and yoke over the years. Power shrug hell, rest pause, doing static holds after deadlifts, doing static holds after RDLs, just absolutely fitting in shrugs and holds and brutality in every possible way. Now, my book, Massive Omnibus, has a section where I talk about traps, and you can get basically all the stuff from my videos on traps in there, and I'm not trying to push you to buy something. But it does contain all that information. You can simply go over to the main page of this YouTube and search traps or shrugs, and you can find just a wealth of information. On my question about alternating bench and dumbbell bench, I was talking about alternating those two on upper A every other week. I was talking about alternating those two on upper A. No, I wouldn't do that. Well, it depends on what upper B is. If you have a bench and a dumbbell bench variation on upper B, you'd be fine. Like if you went from dumbbell bench to incline dumbbell bench or flat bench to incline bench, you'd be fine. But if not, I'd really want to see upper B because we really need to figure out what's going on. All righty. Do you think doing a drop test, I'm assuming drop test to test my safety strikes? I don't know. I mean, I don't see the point in it, to be honest with you. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't understand. Maybe you can explain. What are we dropping? You mean like you're holding the bar and you're dropping it to see if you can drop it using straps? I mean, that can get a little bit. This is one reason, why I like VersaGrips, because you can release easy. Quite honestly, any of you guys watching, I have no affiliation with VersaGrip Pros, but I would get those. And Patty Leather just posted at the end, dropping a barbell, on the straps on a rack. Well, they should be rated. So I don't know. I really wouldn't want to jack up my equipment, to be honest with you. I did not die when you train alone. I've only trained alone and I haven't died. It really becomes about setting the straps at a level where if you have to release, it's not going to, crush your chest, right? And on an overhead press, I set the straps, just a couple inches, or the catch pins a couple inches lower than here. So if you have to release, you can release. Squats, you never want to train more than a couple reps. You need to save a couple reps in the tank and progress in that lane. You don't really want to be around failure on squats. You're just encouraging injuries. Does going 20 days between two similar but equal exercises make progress? No. But again, I want to look at your program. We're focused on hard training, but we have to be reasonable with, how we're spreading these exercises out. So I'd really like to look at your program. Big Nolan, client of mine. What are some meal prep options for brekkie? I need a little break from strictly Greek yogurt. Would be nice not to have to cook breakfast every day, save time. So you can go over to the main page on my channel here and search Iggy cups. You can make Iggy cups. You can make like you have a muffin pan. You put like bacon or turkey bacon on the outside. You crack an egg in the middle and put a little cheese on top. And then 2 Iggy cups. You can freeze these. You can put 2 in a Ziploc bag. So you basically get 6 meals of 250 calories out of them. Good protein. You can do egg bake. You can take a 8.5 by 11, whatever the hell it is, a 9 by 12 baking pan or whatever it is. I don't know. And you put all the eggs in there, and you put all the chopped onion and the jalapenos and the stuff and the, chopped tomatoes, whatever you want in there in the baking pan. You bake it, and then you just cut it in 12, 16, 20 squares. And because you know the calories of the whole thing, you can figure out the calories of the egg bake. And you can make them as big or as small as you want. They save in the freezer really well. These are really 2 really, really good options. I like to get the chicken sausages from Kroger. You can find these chicken sausages or, either the lengths or the patties or turkey patties or whatever. And those are really easy to microwave. One thing you can do as well is you can crack a couple eggs in a Tupperware container and put them in the microwave. You have to pull it out to stir them a little bit, but, it's only going to take you a couple minutes. And, if you're looking for something that takes you less than 2 minutes, that's, you're really getting into hard territory, to come up with ideas. The egg cups and the egg bake were always big hitters for me. And the egg bake, you can pretty much put whatever you want in it. You can chop up a little bit of asparagus. You can chop up tomatoes. You can chop up onions, jalapenos, green chili. Get creative. Add a little bit of nutrition in there. I will never listen to these people that claim that free weights are dangerous. The body's not that fragile. Just ignore this crowd. If you're going to build muscle over a long period of time, you're going to need to push your body regardless of what you're using. So just be safe and smart. Have you ever thought about getting a booth? Yes. Thought about it. It's been discussed. It's a lot of money. During the pandemic, we had considered getting a booth. The thing is, though, if I got a booth, it would be to meet people, because right now my business is capped. You see, I could sell more ebooks and stuff like that, but coaching is what I primarily do. I would get a booth once we have our workout tracker app out, just for awareness, but it's a lot of money. And right now, I just don't want to spend money. I'm in a pretty good place, and it would be good for meeting people, but I just can't lay out the $5,000. Using the rule of 2/3, and I'll explain that if anybody doesn't know what that is. If your program has 12 sets of chest, back, delts, quads, 6 sets each of bis, tris, and hams, and maybe deadlifts on top, is it enough? Yeah, that's all I've ever used in 40 years. That's a lot of hard work, my friend. It's a lot of hard work. That's 72 hard sets per week. And, that's absolutely balanced from head to toe. You can absolutely crush it. Using the rule of 2/3, you have a little bit of room to add in traps, a little bit of room if you want to add in calves and stuff like that. But absolutely, in my opinion, it's the best way to build a balanced physique. It is what I hate about science crowd, to be specific. The person that wants everybody to do lengthened bias. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's not reality. It's really the dumbing down of exercise science and the dumbing down of hypertrophy science. It truly is. And I know that will piss off some people, but it's just the soup of the day. What are we going to push on influencer world? That doesn't mean that certain lengthened bias exercises can't have value, but it gets ridiculous where we're over focusing on one area to the point where we're not seeing the big picture. These people that free weights are, there's like 5 people that say that, and they're all knuckleheads, and they built their base the same way as everybody else. Thank you again. I appreciate it. Shelly, as a grandma eating ice cream, what flavor should I try? Cookies and cream is always a go-to. Sea salt caramel. I like waffle cone with caramel. You guys don't have UDF, but there's one called blueberry chip, which is pretty good. UDF has some really good flavors. Chocolate brownie. Eric, we'll be on 1 week travel for work. I know nothing compares to a squat. If you have weighted vests and bands, you can do Bulgarians and you can do lunges. That's a really good way to attack the legs, if you need to get in a workout. Alternating lunges, split squats. My ex said the same thing. I wanted something different in my mouth. Just floating that out there. He said it, I didn't. Ice cold. Tristan is having very strong triceps. Oh, absolutely. Strength builds strength. You can't have a strong overhead without strong triceps. You can't. It'll always be mid-range, weak. Could stalling and the big movements no. There's stalling is, I hate the word stalling because it's slow. We have a natural slowing of progression over time. We don't stall. Stalls usually occur when you have built 99% of all the strength you're ever going to build, and getting 5 more pounds on the bench could take a year. It could be diet related, but on the deadlift, if you're trying to push to failure, you could have some issues, but in the long run, that's not going to really cause stalling. No. I used to do the cauliflower rice thing. And if you love it, go right ahead. I used to get out the blender and do the thing. There's nothing wrong with it. These days, if I want volume, I'm going to put in onions. I'm going to put in jalapenos. I'm going to put in things that aren't cauliflower just because I'm past that stage in my existence. Our ancestors went long periods of time with little or no food, and they stayed active physically. We don't need as much food as we think we do. Well, we do need to take care of ourselves, and we do need nutrients, and we do need the density, the nutrient density that comes from meat and eggs. But when we generalize about our ancestors, I think we kind of frame things in a way that makes them almost look dumb. And sometimes we forget that for them to survive, they would have had to become very, very efficient. Like, have you ever watched a survival show with these survival experts? and they can't figure out how to catch a fish with a fish trap. They don't even know what a fish trap is. They don't even know how to set a trap, in the ground to catch something as simple as a rabbit, a funnel trap, or anything. Those people would die in nature, these survival experts. I think sometimes we dumb down our ancestors to the point of think they were just some crude hunter-gatherers that were lucky if they made it. Now, obviously, there were seasons that impacted people far more than others, but our ancestors became very efficient at maximizing animals, very efficient with their food, to the point, where they were able to survive and not, allow the species to die off. They're far more efficient than we could ever give them credit for. But yet we tend to dumb things down like they're a bunch of knuckleheads. I'm not saying you are, so just always remember that our ancestors were very efficient with food. And I'm just being honest. I think depending on the period of time, sure, there was times when people go without food, but I think we generalize a little bit, when we go down this lane. Is it good to change some things to a program you're currently running based on needs? Yeah, you can swap things in. I mean, as long as they're lateral swaps and as long as you don't believe they're magic. What was it like training with Ronnie? That's an interesting question, because online, you see Ronnie can be, yelling and very animated, but he's a very quiet guy. So he doesn't say a lot. And we were sitting in a crowd of people. I met Ronnie several times. His supplement line, we used to help him. We used to work with him when I was at Tiger Fitness. And, I've been with him at the Arnold. I've been with him, before the Arnold. I haven't spent a lot of time with Ronnie, but I've spent enough to gauge his personality. He's very quiet. Doesn't say a lot, really, to anybody. He's not obnoxious. Very quiet, decent guy. But I think at times, if you see his training videos, he gets very fired up. Ryan didn't share anything, to be honest. We just trained shoulders and did our sets and moved on. I would say he probably said less than 100 words. I wish I could say there was some big grand conversation, but there wasn't. All right. What would be the best way to digest and apply the massive Omnibus series? Wow, good question. The massive Omnibus is my life's work, and it has literally over 2,000 pages. I think the best way to approach the massive iron system is to look at the pillars of success, and then look at the workout building structure. And then all the other things like the workouts and the tools, they fit in once you understand those, if that makes sense. I have a garage gym filled with free weights. I've been saving for a machine to help develop my quads. If I can only afford to buy one, I would get a leverage squat from Titan Fitness. Definitely get the leverage squat. You can go deep. You can really hammer the quads. It's a quality piece of equipment. It's easy on the lower back. Get a leverage squat from Titan Fitness. I don't have any affiliation from Titan. I have one here. There might be other companies that put them out. Check it out. 100%. 100%. After that, I would get the leg extension leg curl from Titan Fitness. maybe the next year, the year after. If you have the ability to squat, and then you have the leverage squat, and you have the leg extension, leg curl, you are pretty much set at home. Lee says, BTN gang gang. Simon, good to see you, my friend. Great for so much discussion on overhead press. Technical, but so worth the effort. Thank you. I appreciate you tuning in. Amanda, do you start with the weaker side on unilaterals? I do. Like on dumbbell rows, my left arm is always a rep or two shy of my right arm. It's been that way for 39 years. I always start with the weaker side. Hundreds by 8 on seated dumbbell press each hand. The pressing into myself best described as shoulder joint pain. Well, the thing is, if you got to that point, you're probably going to have all the strength you're ever going to need. I got up to 120s for 5s. I think 110s for 3 sets of 10. That's basically all the strength you're ever going to need. At that point, you need to ask yourself, what is reasonable to take care of myself? Right? So it's not going to take a lot for you to sustain your shoulder mass. You could drop down to 80s for 3 sets of 10. You could maybe do 1 set of 100s and then drop down to 90s or 80s. I don't know your specific situation, but that's the best advice I could give you. Dumbbells have me way less locked into a specific pattern. True, and they're going to be, there's positives and negatives that come from that. The looseness with the heavy weight can sometimes impact the joints more. Big Michael Kleineman. Hey, Steve, let's say you have the choice of a lot of great pieces of equipment. Would there be any benefit in alternating chest or quad machines every week? Yeah, absolutely. If you're in a gym that has a ton of options and it motivates you, it excites you, right? There are certain lifts you need to do every week, like squats. And that's about it, to be honest with you. 1 second. The squats are one of the only lifts I can think of that you need to do every week. But if you do alternate, I would alternate like on a bench and an incline bench. Bench would probably be second. Deadlifts every other week's fine. But other than that, there's no real downside. As long as you're training hard, you're going to progress over time, especially you, Michael. Nine weeks into a cut, and the more I keep the weights heavy for me, the more size I'll keep. You're not going to lose size on a cut, and I'm just saying that respectfully. It's a huge myth. It's a non-issue. Unless you starve yourself and don't lift for a long period of time, you're not going to lose muscle on a cut. It's extremely hard to lose muscle once you have it. It's something that's overblown and really a non-issue. And even if you'd lose an ounce or two, muscle memory is a real thing and you'd get it back. Does that make sense? Big Lee. What's the oddest pre-big lift set ritual you've ever seen? I ask because I have to clean my teeth. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. It's I've not heard that one before. So, I don't know. I can't really say for certain. I have a ritual. We're going to talk about adult things here. Like if I'm going to squat or deadlift, I don't want to poop like an hour to hour and a half before. You know, I'll make sure we're not getting any toothpaste residual, right? So itchy butt chitchy, itchy in the butt cheekies. You know what I'm saying? Like, this might be a problem only for the older folks, but like, you know, if I'm going to take a dump, I just want to make sure it's far enough away from a workout where we're not getting any residual toothpaste action. Too many injuries, tears in the past. Sorry to hear that, my friend. Nicholas, I'm 22, training 6 years, following you, GVS, NH, and Alex. Good crew. Strong. Good deadlift, good squat. Bench is a little bit behind. That's not a criticism. Room to grow, right? But still, do you even lift? Well, right now, you have a lot of squat strength and a lot of deadlift strength. The first thing I would say is let me look at your form, please. I want to make sure you're maximizing that. Now, that aside, we need a good battery, a good selection of dumbbell, barbell, and machine exercises that are really going to focus on your arms and legs. Your legs are, relative to your arms, are in place. Generally, you want to see your legs 9 inches bigger than your arms. So from a proportion standpoint, you're good, but you are way behind on arm and leg size. You should be 16 and 25. That's not a criticism. I would like to see your program. From a relative sense, we need to get you bulking up to like 180 to 185 and facilitate some really good growth. So I would like to look at your program where we really need that bulk to be focused. All right. I've had instances where a recomp has stalled. I'm cutting at the moment, but any reason as to why? I'm not a recomper. I don't do recomps. I don't believe in them. So I'm not sure what you mean by them stalling. I'm not a fan of recomps in any way. I think it's a super inefficient method, but I don't know what you mean by stalled. So maybe you could explain. Been training again. I find your videos great on YouTube. Thanks. The 3s and the 5, 10, 10, 20 have been super impactful for so many clients over the years. I can't even begin to, explain. They're not magic, but when you take somebody and they come to me and we put them on the 3s or the 5, 10, 10, 20, immediately you see just bumps and bumps and bumps in their bench press because they're on a really good track. Me and my friends would jokingly call this one Smith machine the glute machine because oftentimes we would see people doing mostly. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I mean, these days, I don't know if you can go into a gym and not have one station where somebody's doing the glutey pooties. I wish you would see more hip thrust machines or stations, more glute kickback stations. Bullet, how's it going? Dropping a barbell onto the straps. Thanks, that made sense. My workouts have always made me shattered for days. That's generally a good sign, leading me to barely survive most days. Is this how everyone feels? Well, you might have too much of a reliance on posteriors and you might be doing too much volume. I don't know. It's going to be like that for a while. I didn't, my main concern is food intake, but I would really like to see, Nicholas, if there's any way, you can come over to Team Massive and just share your workout. It shouldn't be that bad, but that's not a criticism. We just don't know why it is. I've studied and experimented with various training ideologies. My strength improves. We got to get you on the massive iron plan, the bulking plan, making sure your exercise variety is good. And little things like lat pull down, seated cable rows, curls. When I am working with somebody and I can look at their videos, we can make sure we're getting the most out of them. So there's a lot to look at, but the only way to really figure it out is to get under the hood. If any of you guys need coaching, that's what I do for a living, and I keep my coaching very reasonable. It's only $89.40 a month after the first month. Even if you can't afford that and you want a custom workout based on whatever, I do that as well. I do custom workouts every week. I'm here to help. Stewart's ice cream is the GOAT. I've not heard of that. Big Lee. I just survived front squatting. After I re-racked. My cat ran into the room. That's crazy. Back when I used to deadlift in the dungeon, my basement, I had a black cat that would like to run down there. And sometimes when I'm yelling and rage deadlifting, um, the cat would just run under the bar like when I'm at the top with like 675 pounds and I'm about to lower it. And then the cat would run under. I'm like, there's not much you can do when that weight's already coming down. But no cat was injured in this deadlift set. I hit a PR on hammer curls. Nice work. Good job. Kevin, any advice for someone with strength and muscle imbalance? My left arm, due to a messed up rotator cuff surgery, is visible. Well, I will tell you, most people have a smaller left arm naturally. And private citizen, my website, superlivingtoday.com. Hold on. Sorry, I had a cough. There's my website right there. The only thing you can do whenever you have an imbalance is continue to train normally, dumbbells, barbells, machines. There's nothing else you can really do. And I hope that doesn't sound like a disappointment, but if you start to just focus on the weaker side, you're putting too much energy into things. I've worked with clients that have strong imbalances, and the best thing you can do is do the barbell, the dumbbell, the machine, and maybe do one unilateral exercise for body part. In a bulk, should calorie surplus be maintained? Absolutely. You are recovering for 24 to 48 hours after every workout. So if you're training hard 3, 4, 5 days a week, you're always in a state of repair. Plus, we need to bring that calorie average up so we can facilitate good quality repair, good quality growth. How often do most of your clients get minor aches and pains? I mean, not frequently. It's just part of the process. I've had literally 100 aches, pains, and strains over the years. Just comes with progressive overload and hard training, even if you're safe. But it's not normal, but you see, minor issues. Hey, I randomly tweaked my knee on leg lunges and they're doing nothing wrong with lunges. Give it a couple days and a couple weeks. It's normal. Usually that's the case. Logan, how would you structure a full body workout? I plan to do A, B. I have some videos on here. Check out my channel, main page, and search full body. I have a couple of videos, at least one where I build them live. And check out my workout collection at my website. If you go to my website and just go to the search bar and search workout collection, you will see tons of full body workouts in there. And you can go to the workout tab, and nearly every workout has a full body. If you want me to build something for you, I'd be happy. I would do an ABC to include a little bit more volume. Effective is just getting in a good weekly set or a good amount of weekly volume and a good exercise selection. So if you do that and have a progressive overload plan, you'll be perfectly fine. Do you mean leveraged squat? No, leverage squat. Leverage. I'll show you guys. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. I'll actually pull it up and show you what I'm talking about. Leverage squat machine. It is only it's $130 off right now. Get on their website. I have no affiliation. And some people are going to say there's better quality stuff out there. There might be, but I have a gym filled with their equipment and it suits me fine. This is a leverage squat. You can see the pads angled a little bit. It can really allow you to get that butt close to your feet. And right now it is only $609. And you can do, they also have you can do the weekly or monthly installments too if you're trying to hide the payment from your wife or girlfriend. I started doing strict pressing with 115 this week. with a 5x5 and good, man. Well, triceps are sore. Maybe pull back on the volume a little bit, or if you like it, stay after it. Whatever is working good for you. Any advice on how to correct? I just covered this. There's nothing you can do. Nothing. Imbalance. You just have to lift normally. If we start to allocate 70% of our training, try to correct an imbalance, there's a good likelihood it's just going to ruin our slow our overall progress. You might have a slight imbalance, right? But as you get stronger and bigger, that imbalance might still be there, but it'll be minimized. The difference will seem minimal. I wish I didn't ask about pre-rituals. My son wouldn't stop saying itchy butt, itchy. Sorry. What's your website for coaching? superlivingtoday.com. I'm left-handed and my left arm is smaller. And that's an odd one. Usually, like for me being a righty, my left arm is a little bit smaller and a little bit weaker. So I don't know. That's an odd one. All right, guys, last call for questions. Last call for questions. Recommended steps to re-enter the iron game after a 2-year hiatus. I have a video on here. How to train after a break. And let me just find it for you guys while I'm waiting for the last call of questions. I can't remember the name. I've done so many videos over the years. I can't remember. So let's see if I can find it here. If I can. It's called Training After an Extended Layoff. I got 2 of them here. And I want to give you guys these videos. So hold on a second. We'll make things visible. Share screen. Okay, so if you go over and you search return, layoff, just search return and layoff. I have training after an extended layoff. And then down here, how to train when you return to the gym. I recorded that one during the pandemic. So both of those will give you some really good information. Ice cold. How do I know if I have elbow and knee tendonitis? Knee tendonitis, generally what you have is quadriceps tendonitis, and you'll generally feel it above the kneecap. And you'll know when you have it. You'll feel the lower quad. You know when you have it. Elbow tendonitis, the inner elbow. Generally, when you row, it'll hurt. Sometimes, if it's really bad, it'll hurt when you press. And you're welcome, Logan. Should I maintain a calorie surplus? We covered that one. Sorry. And Michael, same here. I'm a lefty too. Both my arms and legs are smaller on the right side. That's weird. Weird body. When I say I need to see a program, I mean I need to see the exercises. Sorry. That's a structure, a split, but it's not a program, if that makes sense. Come on over to Team Massive Discord. Check out the link in the recent video. Seeing an arm difference is the hot topic. Why on some lifts my left arm is stronger? And it's just the nature of the beast, my friend. It's like trying to, it's like trying to figure out relationships. I have no advice for you other than to find one that works. No, deloading is not required. Go to the main page of my YouTube and search deloading. What I talk about is that during the course of a year, there's a lot of time that tries to pull us away from lifting. When you're sick, your birthday, your holidays, vacations, you need a mental break, you feel beat up, you take a couple extra days off. You don't need to structure arbitrary deloads. There's nothing wrong with if you're feeling beat off. Whoops. If you're feeling beat up, to take a couple of days away from the gym, or even a week mentally if you need it. But there's no reason to, schedule an arbitrary deload. Mary, the bench hurts the front of my shoulder, the front delt. That's probably, when you say hurt, you're just getting a lot of extreme soreness, I would say. That's a rite of passage for pressing. generally the front delt starts out the weakest, okay? You probably just have to reduce the volume and just give it time. That type of pain, intense pain, is just part of what happens when we get into pressing, whether it's bench or overhead. Your front delta is weaker than your triceps and chest, and it's just kind of the nature of the beast. Just give it a little bit more rest, maybe a little bit less volume. I have patella alta, and I've struggled with knee pain, so I'm always struggled with being able to manage leg volume. That's fair. The only thing I can say on any of this is always do what you can and do it hard. All right, guys, 2 hours in. Great live today. A lot of wonderful questions. I can't thank you guys enough. Please come back next Friday. I appreciate each and every one of you joining me. If you can't, please come over to Team Massive Discord. I'm trying to build a wonderful community. We have a wonderful community, and we want more people over there. So check out the Discord link. If that doesn't work, please head over to Instagram at Ben the Barman and hit me up. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Kick ass, destroy the iron, and we are out of here.
It's not almost over. It's not almost over. You're not almost there. You're not almost there. You're not almost there.